I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. Today we are going to do the question and answers for August, and I have quite a few here. Somebody has asked about succulents and sempervivans and really loves the ones that I've shown on a video previously. And this person says they're their favourite, and theirs are rotting because they've got an awful lot of rain, not all of them, but many, and wants to save them by adding more gravel. Can't afford the pumice to be able to go in there, and wants to know if pea gravel will work. So the answer to that is yes, pea gravel will work. Anything that you can add in the way of grit to encourage more drainage around the roots of these plants will definitely work. So I would go for that situation. Perhaps lift up certain plants that are certainly okay, give them a load more grit and gravel, and then put them back in. Or if they are not surviving actually in the ground, then try them in pots, and that may be better for you, and that way it will be a lot better. Somebody also asked, where are we? We're actually based in the south of the UK. I've got another lady here. She's asked, she's got a perennial border that she's planted this year, and quite a few she has managed to put in the wrong place because the height is wrong or the spread is wrong, and she wanted to know about whether to move them in the autumn and divide them in the spring. So the answer to that is, it is a good idea to take pictures of your border so that you know what is wrong, and then you can label up the plants that you need to move. Now, if you're going to actually move them and lift them in the autumn, then you should divide them at that time as well. It really depends on your garden. If it's a very cold garden, then I would do all of your lifting and splitting in the spring. If you're a much better garden, therefore, you know, it's much more ambient temperature wise and rainfall wise, then you can do all of it in the autumn, but lift and split at the same time so that you're replanting your splits into the ground in the correct position. Okay. She has also asked me what has gone wrong with her wax flower. It hasn't flowered, and it's cut into a standard tree in a pot. What has she done wrong? Well, wax flowers are a native to Australia, to places which are quite dry, so very Mediterranean, sandy soil, which is not well fed. It does not have very much nutrition, but they do get rainy seasons. So the thing to do is, if you're growing them and they're in a container, do not overwater. Make sure that they are in a free draining compost, and also make sure that you do not water them too much. You can prune, you can keep them to shape. Pruning should help you get more flower, but it's really the fact that they don't want to be too wet and they don't want to be too well fed, and that should help you get, and also put them into a good light sunny position. They like lots of sunshine. This question here is regarding pruning salvias for the winter time, and this person is in zone 9B, and the salvias in the garden have never had anything done to them since they've been planted. They are also in a heat wave, and so wanting to know when they should be cut down and pruned in the way that I show you how to do them over winter. Now, the main thing is that if plants like that have never been cut back, it will be a real shock to them if you go straight in and give them a heavy prune. So I would wait until your heat wave is over and then go to your plants, and I would reduce them by half so that you are doing a slower form of pruning. So go to half height, make them a good shape, and then see how they react and how they come back. If they put on a good amount of growth from lower down and they're looking good, then the next time you go to them to prune them, you can take them further down and you will get much better shape, and you should get better flower on them. I have a question here about Arissimum bulls mauve, which I mentioned in the Arissimum video, about whether it can be cut back as hard as the other varieties. And this person also gets a lot of flea beetle and is wanting to know if there's anything that you can do to deter it or look after it. So with Arissimum bulls mauve, Yes, exactly the same you can do as I did with in the Erysimum video. Probably with it you don't want to be quite so harsh, but always go back to where there are growing points, and that can be done a couple of times through the year. Don't do it right as you get to the winter. Do it as it's actively growing and just take it back. The shorter it is and the more extra growth you get on there, the more flower you get, and it will stop it from getting too leggy. So that's the main reason why you want to give it cut back. Flea beetle is very small, black, glossy little tiny beetle that crawls around on the leaves of anything that is in the cabbage family, and it creates horrible little holes in all of the leaves. It doesn't really kill the plants off, but it distorts and makes the plants look not very attractive. It's very difficult to do much with it, but if you can get hold of the sticky yellow cards that you hang up in your greenhouse or something like that, take those around to the plants and just tap the plants. They will attach, they will jump up and they will attach to those sticky pads, and that way you can go around the plants. You have to probably do this every day, every other day, but it will reduce the amount of beetle that you have on there, and it is much easier to control it. There isn't really anything that you can do to spray or anything else, but that will definitely help. Somebody is asking about columbines, aquiledias, and whether or not we've ever come across Gulmidge in these. So Gulmidge distorts the flower buds of your aquiledias, so they'll be coming up, they're looking really good, the leaf is really healthy, it does not attack those. All it does is it goes into the buds and they distort, they look a bit more swollen, and they just don't ever come out into flower. Now in the UK this happens between May and June. After that they are no longer around. So if you have this Gulmidge, the best thing to do is to cut off all the flower stems that are affected, probably even ones that aren't affected, and stop the plants from flowering. That way you stop the midge from actually coming out and dropping back down into the soil. So you disrupt the cycle of this insect from the way that it would grow. Once you get through and past June, the midge is no longer active and the next lot of flower flush comes through. So you have a later lot of flower. I hope that helps. I've got somebody else here who's asked about their Gorolin hymerai. When they grow it in containers, it is looking really good and it doesn't get floppy. Put it into the ground and it flops all over the place. Well, there are two things that this could be. One is when it's in a container, it is not in competition against other plant material, and you'll probably find, because of the slight restriction of its roots, it is growing within the range that it can grow to. Once it goes into the ground and its roots can spread a bit more, it can get bigger. If you're putting it into a border you may have mulched, and the border may be really rich in nutrient and it's just absorbing all of that, so therefore getting big and quite floppy. Also there could be competition from other plants around, so it is going up and trying to get to as much sunlight as it can, and therefore that draws it up. And those are certain explanations as to why it may be affected in that way. Lastly, I've got quite a long question here. It's a lot of a description and everything else, so I'm just going to shorten it down. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. So basically this is about a lunissera japonica. This person is growing, they train it, and they have taken some cuttings of it and they've replanted those in the border as well. So what they do is they train this to go over and give protection over their perennials. They're in zone B, which is Mediterranean type summer, but in the autumn it floods and then they have frost and snow. In the area where they are, the lunissera stays evergreen, and they train it so that it goes over and creates protection over their herbaceous perennials, which have all died off through the winter. So the answer, what they're really asking is, when should they prune it? And I would suggest you prune and tie in the spring. Let it do all of its going, let it do the protection that it has done, and then do the pruning in the spring to get more growth, and therefore, and in the summertime you can just tie it in and create what you are trying to do. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel.